Peace, Water-bearing Lion here, and today we're going to get into galactic history since my book has been blocked and taken off of Amazon Kindle. Let's begin. In the very beginning of our galaxy, there were two main types of beings that existed. The first being reptilians. They existed in the Draco and Scorpio constellations. The second being Lyraens. The origins of all humanity in this galaxy originate from the Lyraen constellation. From former government intelligence agencies, 70% of our solar system and galaxy are humanoid or human-like. 25% are reptilian, and 5% are other types of beings like insectoids, extraterrestrial beings, an infinite number of them. Two kinds of beings in our universe: oxygen-based beings and hydrogen-based beings. Hydrogen-based beings range from 7 feet to 26 feet tall. Oxygen-based beings range from 4 feet to 10 feet tall. Reptilians are both oxygen and hydrogen-based beings that are also intersex or androgynous, which is where the initial manifestation of perfect being and physical form of reality from the Heavenly Council, Kangda. Due to reptilians being intersex, they feel they are superior to all other life forms. Because outside the physical world, there is no male or female separation. There is only energy. No differentiation of sexes, energetically being male and female in the same body matches God mind, Kangda, Heavenly Council. Reptilian DNA does not change over eons of time. It remains stable. This can be observed through other reptilian species on the earth like snakes, lizards, alligators, crocodiles, etc. Also so-called black people, whose real title is the Moors, whose DNA has been shown to not change for centuries at a time. Where you get the phrase black don't crack from. It may be the Moor race is a sub-Draconian race. Maybe. However, most people on this planet know of the Anunnaki from Nibiru as being reptilians that are hydrogen-based, meaning they were giants. Genetically, they are the same. However, the Anunnaki have nothing to do with the oxygen-based reptilians or draconians on Earth, for they are separate cultures and races. Humanity is considered inferior to the reptilians because we split into male and female bodies to express God mind, Heavenly Council, Kangda. Human genetics have to constantly adapt, change, and evolve, while reptilians do not, for they are already evolved. So, reptilians travel wherever they can go on a holy mission to occupy and assimilate all other beings in their empire. Wars have been constantly fought between humans and draconians all over the Milky Way galaxy, destroying the human home star system Lyra, displacing humans across the galaxy, which then became 110 colonies that created the Galactic Federation. Meanwhile, the Draconian Empire is the head of the Orion Confederation, for they have conquered human colonies throughout the galaxy, like the Pleiadians and the Regilians from the Regal star system. Peace, Water-bearing Lion here, and we're finna get back into part 2 of galactic history. If you haven't seen the first part, go to my page at Water-bearing Lion on TikTok. Let's begin. The Draconian Empire is head of the Orion Confederation, for they have conquered human colonies throughout the galaxy like the Pleiadians, Regilians from the Regal star system, from which the Regilians' genetics, the Draconians created Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, which are artificial humanoids They are brown and frail aliens that look like undeveloped babies, similar to the gray aliens, but less aggressive. The typical gray alien has the appearance of a 3 to 4 month old human fetus grown to higher proportions, just like Zeta Reticuli. However, Zeta Reticuli have more of a Oriental or Asian look or image. These beings have reptilian genetics activated and artificially implanted soul personalities. Good example, watch Transcendence or Altered Carbon on Netflix. I'll give you a good example of implanted soul consciousness. They are not a natural species. They are an artificially developed race based on human fetuses. This is why they have no hormonal development, requiring soaking in human hormones and blood for nourishment. So, where you can get the myth of vampires and the bat-like transformations you see in movies like Underworld, are really Draco reptilian elites in their true form during sacrificial rituals. So the vampires transforming in the movies into their bat-like or creature monster transformation is really a reptilian or draconian transforming into their natural appearance out of a human form. But in the movies, they resemble bats instead of reptilians. So movies like Underworld, Blade, vampire movies like that, and werewolves. However, these artificial humanoids have no digestive systems because it is not developed, just as human fetuses do not have a digestive system because they are still connected to the mother. But the Zeta Reticuli, the brown grays, or the brown aliens beings, they are emissaries for the Orion Confederation. So they are the messengers, the watchers for the Orion Confederation that is in the Orion's belt, which is where a lot of the civilizations talk about and have mentionings of. So they're part of the reptilian agenda. Even those Lyraens that is in the Orion constellation, they have assimilated into the reptilian or draconian empire. So they're no longer human or pure human. They're hybrids of Draco reptilians and humans. The star system we're in now, where the Lyraen refugees colonized, the two planets humans or Lyraens colonized were Mars, when the planet had an atmosphere and surface water. The other planet the Lyraens colonized in this solar system was Maldek, which the Sumerians known as Tiamat, the planet that is now the asteroid belt, separating the inner planets from the outer planets. Lyraens also encountered and interacted with the amphibious troglodytes of the planet Maldek, which Maldek had an atmosphere of water and could sustain human life. Also, Uranus can sustain human life as well, but none is on it as far as we know. Over time, humans on Maldek evolved and adapted to the climate of Maldek. Maldek humans were bigger, physically, and more aggressive than humans on Mars, eventually attacking and going to war with the humans on Mars for resources. However, time passed, neither side was gaining an advantage, so they made a peace with each other. Think of the wars between Mars and the Maldekians of the Greek gods of Olympus against the Titan versus the gods. Just like on Mars, the largest volcano in our solar system, I think, or in our, or whatever, is called Mount Olympus. So in the mythology in Greek mythology, when they say Mount Olympus, they possibly could be talking about Mars and the wars that happened between the Maldekians and the Martians. But, something to ponder upon. Anyway, during that time, the Earth was a water planet, which was second planet from the sun, with an amphibious race without technology. For Earth was totally covered with water. Even the atmosphere was liquid. Note, if all the ice from both poles and Antarctica were to melt, most of the land would be underwater, going from 70% water to about 90% water, and leaving only about 5 to 10% of landmass above water. So, the planet configuration or positions was as follow: Sun, Mercury, Earth, Mars, Maldek, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. There was nothing else. Pluto was a moon of Saturn, and Venus hasn't entered the solar system yet. Neither did Earth's moon at this time. So when Mars and Maldek were colonized, they existed that way for many millennia. After a while, the reptilians became aware of the colonies on Maldek and Mars, so they devised an attack on them. Reptilians being highly technologically advanced, they used planet-sized comets and meteorites as weapons. The Draconians will hollow out the comet or meteor, then use the interior as a base, while having a small black hole drive or direct it through space. Now, this all may sound crazy or unbelievable to you. However, this is a reality we live in where anything is possible. Using a small black hole as a propulsion system for planetary bodies is a normal thing in the universe we just don't know about. When the Draconians knew of the Lyraen's location, they hollowed a planetary-sized ice comet, using a small black hole to drive into the solar system, which caused major disruption and disaster to the planets. The first planet the ice comet came in contact with was Uranus. As it passed by Uranus, it disrupted the orbit, planet rotation, and magnetic field, causing Uranus to rotate north to south and flipping its axis. However, Neptune eluded the destruction of the ice comet, and the next encounter was Saturn. As the ice comet passed by Saturn, didn't do too much damage. However, it left several of Saturn's dwarf planets or moons to drift away from it and have its own orbit like Pluto. Family, friends, Waterbury Line here, and we're going to get back into galactic history. This will be part 3. If you haven't seen part 1 or 2, just go to my page and just look them up, and then get back to this one. So, let's begin. When we last left off, we was going over the configuration of the planets. And now we're finna get into Venus and the moon and how there are ice comets that came from out of our solar system. Once the ice comet came into close proximity to Jupiter, Maldek, and Mars, this was a gravitational tug of war between the planets, the comet, and the sun. The tug of war between Maldek, Jupiter, Mars, the ice comet, and the sun put Maldek under severe gravitational pressure, causing most of Maldek to explode with pieces of Maldek scattering everywhere throughout space, which most of Maldek became the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, while other pieces of Maldek became the rings of Saturn and Uranus, while also moons of Jupiter and Saturn as well. Also, NASA probes have confirmed pieces of ice and rock from Saturn and Uranus rings came from Maldek. Furthermore, Jupiter and Saturn have over 161 moons between them, with 26 moons from each planet having provisions or organic material that we can use, with these 2 planets alone make a mini solar system of itself. Furthermore, causing Mars to have fissures open open up, allowing some of the water to be absorbed inside the planet. So the ice comet, which we know as Venus, is the reason for Mars' destruction, and not Nibiru or any other planetary bodies that we know of. So the Lyraens and amphibious troglodytes from Maldek and Mars went underground of Mars to escape the cataclysm of Mars. Also, NASA admits Mars was once like Earth, but don't tell what happened. Of course, they don't want to tell you, because then there'll be the truth. Now, when the ice comet approached Earth, something different happened. The ice comet started going into orbit with watery Earth. As the sun gravitational pull disrupted the ice comet, putting it on the orbit with Earth, they began rotating around each other. Earth's rotation increased and the ice comet pulled portions of the water off and vaporizing it, enabling Earth's atmosphere to form. Ice caps created and land masses started emerging from the oceans as water was being pulled in several directions. The land masses that emerged from the water later became known as Lemuria and Atlantis. Lemuria being the first place the ice comet passed over when it was near Earth, then finally the Earth and the ice comet settled in their current positions. The ice comet became the second planet from the sun, and Earth is the third, with Mercury still being first from the sun. The sun's light began reflecting off the ice comet, heating and melting the ice, evaporating it into the atmosphere, giving the comet a thick atmosphere of deadly gases, which we now know as Venus. So, yes, Venus is just an ice comet. Imagine having dry ice in a jar and sitting it in front of the sun. The liquid from the dry ice begins to evaporate, giving the jar a thick layer of gas that the sun cannot penetrate. That is Venus. For Venus has no detectable magnetic field, having 243 days of rotation from west to east, unlike the other planets that rotate from east to west, which, if we did a diagram and a map of Venus's orbit and rotation, it would make a pentagram. Yes, it'll make a 5-star pentagram. Kind of crazy, isn't it? But it's a fixed object in a fixed orbit, just like the moon. The Soviet Union sent a spacecraft in the early 1980s with a very sophisticated camera system that would not burn up in the heat of the Venetian atmosphere. For the first time, a spacecraft was able to land on Venus and survive to the photograph and to take photographs of the surface. The spacecraft photographs were transmitted back to Earth with images of 7 domed areas. The Draconian race has 7 species of reptilians in its hierarchy. The Hindu caste system is the direct replica of the Draconian hierarchy. Each species with a specific function, highly programmed and a narrow focus. They don't mix with each other, which is why they cohabitate on Venus in separate domes. This information has been out for decades, but most of the population barely knows anything of it. Peace, family, friends. Water Baron Lion here, and we're finna go into Galactic History Part 4. If you haven't seen the other videos, they're in my they're on my page at Water Baron Lion TikTok. But let's begin. In 2012, Russian scientists claimed they had reviewed the Venus photographs and saw these types of creatures on the surface of Venus: a dinosaur, scorpion, and a reptile. Now, going back to the galactic history, over a millennia had passed since reptilians destroyed Maldek and reducing Mars' surface to wasteland. Humans and amphibious troglodytes that have colonized Mars and Maldek thrived inside Mars' interior. However, friction between Maldekians and Martian humans began once more, as the Maldekians were once again fighting over resources. Around the same time, a single human colony in the Pleiades, called Atlantis, were in conflict with the rest of the human colonies in the Pleiades, petitioning for their removal from the star system. When Venus, or the ice comet, became the second planet from the sun, the Maldekian and Martian humans knew nothing about Earth in its current state, being able to sustain human life to colonize and being closer to Mars. Knowing this, the Draconian Empire drove another ice comet, but much smaller in size compared to Venus, and positioning the smaller ice comet in the orbit of Earth, which we know now as the Moon. Note: the Moon does not spin nor rotate. It is an hollowed-out ice rock. Sonic resonance is sent to the surface of the Moon, which it pinged like glass and doesn't thump like a solid object. The Moon is in a fixed position, which one side always facing Earth, also meaning the Moon's orbit is mechanically fixed and needs no correction, in which we know that the Earth is not flat, it's round, because as the Earth rotates to the east, the sun appears from the west, and it's vice versa for the Moon. So we're really supposed to be going west to east, not east to west. But let's get back into the history. Also, having no magnetic field, it stays fixed in Earth's orbit due to mass and gravitational pull. The location of the planet Earth in the Milky Way galaxy is on the outer edge of one of their spirals. This is why you can see the rest of the Milky Way galaxy from our position. If you are an invading force that wishes to occupy an entire galaxy, the most logical way to achieve this is to occupy the points on the outer edges and work your way in. This is an occupied galaxy. Earth is a prison planet for some races. We exist on the energetic border of the astral and the physical. In this particular part of the galaxy, from Earth's location in time and space, it is very easy to enter into the non-physical. This explains why on this planet there are so many apparitions and interdimensional events. This also explains why there is so much going on, bleeping in and out of our physical world. Earth is right on the edges in this borderline area of the galaxy of non-physical and physical. Earth is a great place to occupy if you want to control the galaxy. It is also a great place if you want to go interdimensional or into the astral and hyperspace. Earth is the perfect location. Location is what makes Earth so popular. Out of the billions of occupied planets in existence, Earth is not the best physical place, but it is definitely the best location. Or what they like to say, location, location, location. From the Moon, the reptilians colonized Earth first, starting on the landmass known as Lemuria, being the only intelligent life on Earth for several hundred thousand years. Eventually, Martians in the Galactic Federation had Maldekians and one Palladian Nordic human colony sent to Earth in exile for their aggressive and warlike behavior. Specifically, an unoccupied landmass now referred to as Atlantis, around 300,000 BC until about 10,500 BC. Also around this time, Atlanteans made contact with another race of giant human-like beings in the North Pole called Hyperboreans. They intermarried with the Atlanteans, creating a powerful people that became dragon riders and protecting the Atlanteans from reptilian attacks, just like in Game of Thrones. That's a very good example of that. But peace. Water Bearing Line here, and we're finna get into part 5 of Galactic History, and we left off on Dragon Riders. like those of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. So let's get into it. Down the timeline of history, these dragon riders became known as Knights Templars, then later as lion tamers and riders, and snake tamers and charmers. Basically, they could control the minds of animals, basically, these dragon riders, or these descendants of dragon riders. The Lyraen refugees called themselves Atlans. In their language, Atl means water. Atl also means water in the Mayan language, just like you would see in that movie Wakanda Forever, Black Panther, and him facing Myanmar and Blue Bloods. But yeah. If you look at it from the reptilian perspective, the Lemurians viewed the Atlanteans as occupiers and invaders. The humans arrived with two genders, whereas the androgynous Lemurians were genderless. This was an issue for both sides. There was also an issue of food source, because when people migrate, they bring their food and animals. The Atlanteans had a problem with the Lemurian animal food source, which you know as dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were very large and disturbed the Atlanteans. They rampaged over land masses and devoured the food the Atlanteans were cultivating. The Atlanteans despised the destructive animals, so they used electromagnetic pulse weapons to kill them, just like you will see in the movie 65, with humans from Procyon coming back to Earth and trying to save the little girl from dinosaurs and stuff like that. And the weapon that he was using was an electromagnetic pulse weapon. Yeah, go watch that movie 65. This is the real truth of why dinosaurs, mammoths, and other prehistoric creatures abruptly became extinct. It had nothing to do with the Earth flipping on its axis. Rather, it was solely the electromagnetic pulses of the Atlanteans that eliminated them. There was no gigantic asteroid or comet that hit the Gulf of Mexico and destroyed the dinosaurs 60 million years ago, as scientists claim. If this were true, you would not be here right now, as there would be no life on Earth. The planet would have been a barren wasteland forever. Since life on Earth obviously exists, that's proof that did not happen. There were many difficulties between the Atlanteans and Lemurians, resulting in numerous wars between the two civilizations on the planet and on the moon. With humans eventually gaining control over the moon, they hated each other. Each thought the other did not belong on the same planet. Atlanteans, who were the human Maldekians and Palladians, were extremely warlike, aggressive, and had an agenda of their own to fan out across the world and eliminate the reptilians. Amphibious Maldekian troglodytes, just like mentioned in the Dr. Mulachi's book, there were Syrians, tall and dark humans originating from Lyra star system, from the star Vega, being created by the Alalu Council or Heavenly Council. Syrians are spiritually and technologically advanced more than the other races on Earth. They are known as the mutual ally of both humans and reptilians, trading resources and technology with other races. Another known race on Atlantis was the Keteroti, an energetic ethereal race of lion beings with violet eyes and wings that are white and gold. They were created by the Alalu Council, or Heavenly Council as well. Working alongside the Syrians in their endeavors, there was a genetic memory of hatred towards the reptilians and the Syrians because of what happened to the Lyran star system. For the Syrians were at war with the Orion star system. This hostility exists to this day. It is intriguing since the beings in Orion were once very human, as Lyraen colonists, and then were taken over by the reptilians. However, the Sirians and the reptilians trade with each other, and the beings from Sirius A will sell weaponry to the Dracos. A complex political situation indeed. This was the underlying factor in all disagreements. There were many attempts to peace between the two civilizations. In an effort to create peace between the two species, the third species was created, part reptilian and part mammalian. This is how humanity in its current form came into existence, not way of evolution. Peace. Peace, family, friends. Waterband Lion here, and we finna get into part 6 of Galactic History. Let's get into it. The reptilians agreed to the peace plan as long as their genetics were foundational with mammalian genetics secondary. As you know, when a human fetus gestates in the womb in the first trimester, the zygote appears as an androgynous reptilian. As it develops, the mammalian genetic sequence opens secondarily, just as they were encoded. So basically, looking at the photographic images of the stages of the human fetus, and you'll see it starts out as reptilian, and then later on transforming or manifesting into the mammalian genetics, being half reptilian, half mammalian. The Draco and the Lyraens came to Earth to create humanity as a synthesis and a peace process between the two species. This is the only planet where the two species have merged into a new species. This is another reason why this planet is of so much interest. Anyway, the sexual differentiation in the fetus it follows the course of genetic input from the genetic programs. The proof is in you. The proof is in how you were manifested. Every now and then you will see videos or reports of a baby being born with reptilian characteristics, like scaly skin, a tail, red eyes, and webbed hands or feet. When androgyny manifests in the body, the individual is referred to as hermaphrodite or intersex. What is a human exactly? A human is a mind, soul, thought, and organic vessel of featherless plantigrade bipedal mammal that is the head or origin to a race or begets family of stars that is handy, upright, and arrogant. Some can be unintelligent and lack purpose, while most are wise and well acquainted with the value of knowing things. When humans were genetically manipulated to evolve faster, it was due to them being docile and capable of doing tasks. Humans have 22 different alien genetics, 12 humanoid, 1 reptilian group donated DNA, 6 races in total for this purpose. Scientists and NASA informers have documented this. First humans evolved on Mars due to Lyraens, amphibious troglodytes from Maldek, and Anunnaki beings needed primitive workers to mine for them on Mars. Adam in Hebrew means from the earth. This is why they call this third new species Adamites, which means created out of the earth. Humanity was not really created out of the earth. because neither species originated on Earth. The Earth environment is hostile to humanity. When you are natural to an environment, you live easily. You always find food and shelter. There are no problems. Humans have to wear clothing, find shelter, and cultivate food. They struggle to survive. You are not native to Earth, so you exist in a hostile environment. Even your biorhythms or vibrations do not match the biorhythm of Earth. As far as escaping, this planet is considered a prison or a mental institution. A lot of beings are sent here as punishment because they misbehave, like the Atlantis and the human Maldekians. This is recorded by reptilians on Earth, well, in the Earth. The Elohim or Elohim, which are the Anunnaki, Lyraens, and amphibious troglodytes from Maldek, seen together, came to Earth and took Australopithecine or early southern primate to Mars and genetically manipulated and hybridized them to make humankind. The female ape and the Elohim or Elohim male DNA are the parents' origins of Bigfoot, hobbits, pygmies, Homo habilis, Homo noeldi, Homo rufodolnesis, Homo georgicus, Neanderthal, dark Neanderthals, or Denisovans. You will know through genetics because they share the same nose, hairy bodies, sexual dimorphism, short height, and long arms compared to the short legs as their ape mother. So this is why you would see human leaders lean more towards patriotism because they have the male genetic bloodline of the Elohim or Elohim or the gods, which is why they don't go by the maternal bloodline, because the Moors are connected to the maternal bloodline, which I'm finna get into in the next video. To be continued. Peace. Peace, family, friends. Waterbearing Lion here. And we finna get into part 7 of Galactic History. I know I had left off on the last one where the reptilians had recorded that the Anunnaki and Lyraens had came to Earth, taking the southern primates and making them or hybridizing them into slaves or humankind. So let's begin. Valim Amin Ra, Abracadabra. So, recorded by reptilians on Earth, the Elohim or Elohim, which are the Anunnaki, Lyraens, and amphibious troglodytes, seen together, came to Earth and took Australopithecine or early southern primate to Mars and genetically manipulated and hybridized him to make humankind. The female ape, the ape of the Earth, and the Elohim or the male alien or the male Anunnaki or male Lyran DNA or sperm are the parents and origins of Bigfoot, hobbits, pygmies, Homo habilis, Homo noeldi, Homo rudolphinus, Homo georgicus, Neanderthal, dark Neanderthals, and Denisovans. And you will know that they are genetically connected because they share the same nose, hairy bodies, sexual dimorphism, short height, and long arms compared to their short legs as their ape mother. This is why you see pale folk or Khazars or so-called Europeans. They got plenty of names, but pale folk usually go with patriotism. Pale human leaders usually lean towards patriotism for the reason they want to be connected to the alien father bloodline, which they think by having the alien father bloodline, they give them the right to inherit or rule over people. Or they think they're of royal blood by having the father's, by going off the father's bloodline, which is why a lot of societies today go by the father's name, go by the father's last name or father's ancestry instead of your mother's. So this began the paternal bloodline flow of going with the paternal bloodline instead of going with the maternal bloodline, because they felt more connected with their alien father instead of their ape mother, which is why a lot of pale folk have hairy bodies, have the same type of nose, same type of lips, have some sexual dimorphism about them, and all sorts of other issues. So, which is why the Teutonic or pale people follow the paternal bloodline and gravitate towards patriotism, while the female Elohim or Elohim, which is the female alien, the Anunnaki woman or Lyraen woman, and the male ape DNA or male sperm, so think of the male sperm going into the Anunnaki or Lyraen woman egg, are the parents' origins of Homo erectus or upright man, naming him Adamu, which means man of red earth. After they perfected the hybridization of the humankind, they began putting them to work in the mines of Mars and later Earth in Africa, Levant, and Eurasia. Which is why a lot of our Moors, people of melanin, different shades of brown, go off the maternal bloodline, because we come from the holy womb of the Anunnaki or Lyraen women, which are original humans from Lyra. Okay? Which is why a lot of our Moors go off the maternal bloodline, because the maternal bloodline leads us directly back to our origins. So it's always duality in this reality. The Moors go off the maternal bloodline. The Khazars or pale folk go off the paternal bloodline. Which is why the maternal bloodline, the Moors, who come from the womb of the Anunnaki or Lyra women, are the inheritors of this planet. Okay? Also creating Homo heidelbergensis from Homo erectus, which San or the Kung people of South Africa evolved from. From their genetics, the San or Kung people have the most diverse DNA that can be traced on all land masses and back 300,000 years ago. During the sinking of Atlantis, or America, because Atlantis is America, while Homo florensis or pygmies being the descendants of the Denisovians. Cro-Magnon were created when Martian humans took Homo heidelbergensis and Neanderthals as their wives, along with the other race of humans that were giants living around the North Pole called Hyperboreans, that became dragon riders, like that of Game of Thrones, and also known as the frost giants in the Scandinavian myth. These were your red-haired giants throughout history, like those of the Amorites and those they speak of in North America, the Amaru, the ones that settled on Saint Royal, the island in Canada, that settled there. But yeah. However, these early humans were devolving. The early humans were Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, the hobbits, and all the rest of them. They were devolving. So the next experiment of genetic mixing was between Homo heidelbergensis and Anunnaki breeding together, creating Homo sapiens, or wise men, or modern day Moors, or modern day man. As recorded by Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki created the Moor race, and along with the help of the Syrians and Karaoti lion race, donating DNA to the Moors to create the Hebrews, who were tall, dark, and powerful people. The Nilotic human tribes in Africa like San, the Bantu, Nigerian, and Watusi. Hybridization between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals created the modern Europeans and Asians like the Yamna, the Hottentot, the Ubad, the Hallstatt, and late Stone Age cultures, which became early Bronze Age cultures like Elam, Hittites, Sumerians, the Mitanni, Aryans, dynasties in China, pre-Homeric Greeks, Teutons, Germanic tribes, Scandinavian tribes, and some Celt tribes. Neanderthals in Europe and Central Asia are created from Homo heidelbergensis that migrated into Europe, Asia, from Africa, infusing reptilian and Lyraen genetics, giving these early humans reptilian and human equal genetic split of DNA, making it easier for these early humans to tap into either side, with recessive genetics like blonde hair, blue eyes, and also red hair and green eyed, with pale skin for easier control over them by the reptilians. Reptilians on Australia abducted Atlantean humans to create their own race, which are the Australian Aborigines. You can tell they're hybrids by being manifested as dark humans with blonde or red hair, which is recorded in the Sumerian tablets. Not only did they genetically modify humans, but they also experimented with genetic splicing with humans and different animals, creating the aforementioned Bigfoot, the werewolves, Alcapholoi, or headless man, mermaids, humans and lion genetics to make the house cat, human and wild boar to make the modern pig, humans with dog heads on the island in the Pacific recorded by Marco Polo, and also the Greek mythology in Egypt and hieroglyphs, finding numerous stories that repeat